Loneliness is killing you. And me saying that to you, you're probably thinking, Henry, of course. What are you on about? We're all depressed. Of course it is. And to that, I would say that's fair. That's a very fair thing to say. Before I made this video, I went and reviewed a meta-analysis on how young people who consider themselves lonely are suffering with depressive symptoms and how they kind of correlate between each other. What was interesting about this was that people who are lonely are also often depressed because they get themselves into a loop. They get themselves into a cycle where the thing to cure their loneliness is to go and hang out with their friends and be sociable. But the thing that prevents them from being sociable and hang out with their friends is the fact that they're depressed. And the fact they're depressed is because they're lonely. So you have these two things that are feeding into each other, and it's a never ending cycle unless there's some kind of intervention from an outside force. Now, this takes me back to when I was alone. A few years ago, I was alone. I was working online. I moved to a different country. I was alone. I had no one, I didn't know anyone. Everyone spoke a different language. There was no way that I felt comfortable going out and connecting with other people. So I put myself in this position. And one day I went out and I went to the gym and went and joined the gym after multiple weeks of eating terribly and just having a bad time. I was like, let's do something about this. Let's go and get my health in check. So that's what I did. Went to the gym and I went and talked to some people. And it went terribly because I had not worked on that muscle for a long time, the social muscle, and it went absolutely awfully. And I went back home and I put myself into this cycle of shame and guilt of letting that muscle fatigue or atrophy over time, that I was no longer competent at using that muscle effectively to go and build relationships. But because I hadn't worked on this muscle and I was aware that it had atrophied so badly that I no longer wanted to go out and even attempt it. So therefore, I felt even more alone because I didn't see the light at the end of the tunnel that it was even possible to go out and work on this muscle or train in any sense. And then because I was alone, I felt depressed. And so reading this meta-analysis today really made me reflect on that situation, how badly it sucked. I eventually got out of that situation because I left the country, I came back to the UK, everything was okay. So my general conclusion of this is that environment is so important. And I don't say that as a super general statement because the reason you're maybe depressed or alone or whatever the case is could be something completely different. However, the environment that you're in is probably contributing in some capacity, even if you're alone and depressed and you are at home or you live with your friends and you're like, well, I enjoy it here. There is something in your environment that's probably feeding into that, which isn't helping. So if you have the means or the ability to change your environment in any capacity, even if it isn't a massive change, such as moving across the country or to a different country, it doesn't always need to be that extreme. Maybe it's just changing your neighborhood. Maybe it's buying a plant for your house. I know these are really terrible suggestions, but changing your environment in some capacity can make an improvement. And I wish there was a magic switch that I could pull and be like, this is the curtain you need to see behind, and this is the thing that's going to cure your loneliness and your depression. But quite frankly, that doesn't exist. You have to first want to actually make a change and then go out of your way to try things and fail at those things and be okay with that thing. I'm not a licensed psychologist or psychiatrist, whatever it's called, but this is what helped me. Changing the environment was massive and forcing myself to go and be surrounded by my friends and family again who I knew cared about me. And I understand I'm in a privileged position of having people that did and do care about me. But I think there are people for everyone who care about you in various different capacities, but there are people out there. It's just a case of going and finding them. I'm going to round this off by saying if you don't feel like you do have anyone, God is always there for you, and I hope you can go and build that relationship. I'm not going to touch on that too much, but yeah, I hope you have a great rest of your day and in a bit.